My name is Miguel Santos, and I need to tell you what's been happening in Marshfield, Wisconsin. I need to tell someone before I can't anymore. It started 3 weeks ago with the Hendersons. I was pulling a double shift at Brennan's warehouse, operating the forklift until nearly midnight. The radio was crackling with reports about another missing family. The Hendersons from Oak Street. Just gone. No signs of struggle, no broken windows, nothing. Like they'd just walked out into the night and never came back. Third family this month, I thought, stacking the last pallet of agricultural supplies. What the hell is going on in this town? I'd lived in Marshfield my whole life. Born here, went to high school here, got married here, divorced here too. But that's another story. Point is, I knew this place. I knew these people. And something was very, very wrong. The first time I noticed it was at Murphy's Diner the next morning. I always stopped there before work. Same booth, same waitress, same order. Black coffee and 2 eggs over easy. But when Diane brought my coffee, her movements were off, too precise, too deliberate, like she was thinking about every step. "Thanks, Diane," I said, waiting for her usual morning chatter about her grandkids or the weather. She just stared at me. Her eyes seemed darker somehow, the pupils too large for the fluorescent lighting. When she finally spoke, her voice had this strange, flat quality. "You're welcome, Miguel." That was it. No smile, no warmth. She just turned and walked away with those same mechanical movements. Maybe she's having a rough morning, I told myself. Maybe her arthritis is acting up. But I couldn't shake the feeling that something fundamental had changed about Diane, like she was wearing a mask of herself. Work felt normal enough. I spent the day moving inventory, listening to my coworkers joke about the missing families. Dark humor, the kind you use to cope with things that don't make sense. Maybe they got tired of Wisconsin winters, Jake said, lighting up a cigarette during break. Can't blame them. All at once, I asked. 3 families in 3 weeks? Jake shrugged. Stranger things have happened. But I could see it in his eyes too. That same unease that was eating at all of us. Marshfield was a small town. When people disappeared, you noticed. That evening, I decided to drive past the Henderson place. I don't know why. Morbid curiosity, maybe. Or maybe some part of me was already starting to suspect the truth. The house looked normal from the outside. Lawn needed cutting, newspapers piling up on the porch. But as I sat there in my truck, I noticed something that made my blood run cold. There were lights on in the basement, faint bluish lights flickering behind the small ground-level windows. Not electric lights, something else. Something that pulsed with an organic rhythm, like a heartbeat made of light. I was so focused on those lights that I almost missed the figure standing in the upstairs window. When I looked up, there was someone watching me. Tall, motionless, backlit by the strange glow from below. I couldn't make out the face, but I could feel the weight of that stare. It felt hungry, evaluating. I drove home fast, checking my rearview mirror every few seconds. The next few days passed in a haze of increasing paranoia. More people started acting strange. Tom at the gas station spoke in that same flat monotone. Mrs. Chen at the grocery store moved with those precise, mechanical gestures. And their eyes. God, their eyes were all wrong. But it was when I saw Carlos that I really started to panic. Carlos Mendoza had been my best friend since middle school. We'd grown up together, worked construction together before I moved to the warehouse. He was the kind of guy who never met a stranger, always had a joke or a story. His laugh could fill a room. I ran into him at the hardware store on Thursday. He was standing in the tool aisle, completely motionless, staring at a display of drill bits. "Hey, Carlos," I called out, walking over with relief. Finally, someone normal. He turned toward me, and my stomach dropped. The face was Carlos's face. Same dark hair, same scar on his chin from when we crashed our bikes as kids. But the expression was empty, vacant, and those eyes, they were too dark, too deep, looking at me like I was a specimen in a jar. "Hello, Miguel," he said in that horrible flat voice. "Carlos, man, are you okay? You look..." "I am fine. How are you, Miguel?" The way he said my name made my skin crawl, like he was tasting it, testing how it felt in his mouth. I'm good. Listen, have you heard about the missing families? The Hendersons and..." "Yes, very unfortunate." His head tilted slightly, like a bird studying a worm. "People disappear sometimes. It happens. But don't you think it's weird? 3 families in 3 weeks?" Carlos stepped closer. Too close. I could smell something strange on him, like ozone and burnt metal. "Why do you ask so many questions, Miguel?" The way he said it wasn't curious. It was a warning. I mumbled some excuse and got out of there as fast as I could. In my truck, hands shaking as I started the engine, I tried to make sense of what I'd just seen. That wasn't Carlos. That was something wearing Carlos's face. But that was impossible, wasn't it? That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about those bluish lights in the Henderson basement, about the figure in the window, about Carlos's empty stare. Around 2 a.m., I heard something outside, a low humming sound, like electrical interference. I crept to my bedroom window and peered through the blinds. The street was empty, but the humming was getting louder. And then I saw it. A light in the sky. Not a plane or a helicopter. Something else entirely. It moved with purpose, gliding between the houses, casting strange shadows that seemed to writhe and move on their own. As I watched, frozen with terror, the light stopped directly over my neighbor's house. Mrs. Patterson, a sweet old lady who brought me cookies every Christmas. The light pulsed once, twice. Then it was gone. But I could still hear that humming, fainter now, but constant, like it was coming from inside the walls themselves. I didn't go to work the next day. Instead, I drove around town, trying to figure out who was still normal. The list was getting shorter by the hour. At the post office, Jim moved with those same mechanical gestures. At the bank, 3 of the tellers spoke in that flat, emotionless tone. Even Father Rodriguez at St. Mary's seemed different when I stopped by. His usually warm demeanor replaced by something cold and calculating. "Miguel," he said when he saw me, "you look troubled." "Father, I need to ask you something. Have you noticed anything strange about people lately?" His smile didn't reach his eyes. "Strange how?" "They're acting different, like they're not themselves anymore." Father Rodriguez stepped closer, and I caught that same metallic smell I'd noticed on Carlos. "Perhaps you're the one who's different, Miguel. Perhaps you're seeing things that aren't there." "What's that supposed to mean?" "Sometimes, when we resist change, our minds play tricks on us, make us see enemies where there are only friends." The way he emphasized resist made my blood run cold. I backed toward the door. I should go. "Miguel," his voice stopped me. When I turned back, his eyes were completely black. No iris, No white, just darkness. You can't run from what's coming. None of us can. I ran, but where could I go? If the priest was one of them, if Carlos was one of them, then who could I trust? How many people in Marshfield were still human? How long until they come for me? That evening, sitting in my kitchen with all the lights off, I tried to make a plan. I'd drive to Milwaukee, maybe, find the FBI, tell them what was happening. They'd have to believe me, wouldn't they? Then I heard the knock at my door. 3 soft raps, perfectly spaced. I crept to the window and peered out. It was my ex-wife, Linda. We'd been divorced for 2 years, but we'd stayed friendly. She looked the same as always. Blonde hair pulled back, wearing her nursing scrubs from the hospital. But something about her posture seemed wrong. Too straight, too still. "Miguel?" she called out. "I know you're in there. I need to talk to you." I didn't answer. "Miguel, please. It's about Carlos. Something's happened to him." Against my better judgment, I opened the door but kept the chain lock engaged. "What about Carlos?" Linda's smile was all wrong, too wide, showing too many teeth. "He's been in an accident. He's asking for you at the hospital." "What kind of accident?" "Please, Miguel, just come with me. He doesn't have much time." I looked into her eyes and saw that same terrible darkness I'd seen in Father Rodriguez, in Carlos, in all of them. "You're not Linda," I whispered. Her smile faltered for just a moment. Then it returned, wider than before. "Of course I'm Linda. Who else would I be?" "Prove it. Tell me something only Linda would know." She tilted her head, considering. "We were married for 6 years. We honeymooned in Door County. You have a scar on your shoulder from when you fell off Tommy Morrison's roof in high school. All true. All things that anyone in town might know if they asked around." "What did you call me when we made love?" I asked. The smile disappeared entirely. Her face became a mask of cold fury. "Let me in, Miguel." "No, let me in." Her voice was changing, becoming something else, something that hurt to listen to. I slammed the door and threw the deadbolt. Through the wood, I could hear her moving around on the porch, not walking, something else, like she was testing the walls, looking for another way in. The sound stopped. I waited by the door for what felt like hours, but she was gone. When I finally worked up the courage to look outside, the street was empty. But on my doorstep, burned into the wood, was a symbol I'd never seen before. It looked almost like a star, but with too many points, and lines that seemed to shift when I wasn't looking directly at them. "They're marking me," I realized. "They know where I am." I spent the rest of the night packing. Clothes, food, my grandfather's shotgun from the closet. I'd leave at first light, drive as far as my truck would take me. But when morning came, I discovered they'd thought of that too. My truck wouldn't start. When I popped the hood, I found that someone had removed key components from the engine. Not damaged them, removed them entirely, like they'd been surgically extracted. I was trapped. That's when I noticed the neighbors. Mrs. Patterson was standing in her front yard, perfectly still, watching my house. So was Mr. Kim from across the street, and the Johnson kids from next door. All of them just standing there, staring. As I watched, more people emerged from houses up and down the block. Men, women, children, all moving with those same precise mechanical movements, all converging on my street, all watching me. I backed away from the window, my heart hammering against my ribs. The shotgun felt small and useless in my hands. How many of them are there? How long has this been going on? The questions multiplied in my mind like cancer cells. Had Linda been replaced months ago, during our divorce proceedings? Had Carlos been taken weeks back, when he'd seemed quieter than usual at Murphy's Diner? How long had I been surrounded by these things without realizing it? The phone rang. I almost didn't answer it, but some desperate part of me hoped it might be someone real, someone human. Miguel? The voice was Carlos's, but that horrible flat version. Why are you afraid? Stay away from me. We don't want to hurt you. We want to help you. Help me what? Become better. Become more than you are. I could hear something in the background of the call, that same electrical humming I'd heard the night I saw the lights, but underneath it, something else. Voices, dozens of them, speaking in unison. We were like you once, Carlos continued, confused, scared, limited. But now we understand. Now we're part of something greater. You're not Carlos. I am Carlos. And I am also more than Carlos, just as you will be more than Miguel. The line went dead. I tried calling the police, but when dispatch answered, the voice was that same flat monotone. 911, what's your emergency? This is Miguel Santos. I need help. People in my neighborhood are acting strange, and I think... There's no emergency, Miguel. Please remain calm. You don't understand. Something's happening to people. They're being replaced or changed somehow. Everything is normal, Miguel. You're experiencing stress-related hallucinations. Officers are being dispatched to assist you. I hung up and ran to the back window. 2 police cars were already pulling into my driveway. They're coming for me. I grabbed my supplies and headed for the basement. If I could get to the storm drain behind the house, maybe I could escape through the drainage system. It was a long shot, but it was all I had. But when I reached the basement, I found I wasn't alone. Linda was waiting for me, sitting calmly in my old recliner like she'd been there for hours. Hello, Miguel. How did you get in here? She gestured toward the far wall, where I now noticed a hole had been burned through the foundation. The edges were still glowing with that strange bluish light. We've been trying to be gentle with you, she said. But you keep resisting. Why? Because you're not human. Linda laughed, and for a moment she sounded almost like her old self. Define human, Miguel. Are you the same person you were 10 years ago? 5 years ago? Yesterday? That's different. Is it? Your cells replace themselves constantly. Your thoughts change. Your memories fade and distort. What makes you you from one moment to the next? I raised the shotgun, but my hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold it. We're not destroyers, Miguel. We're gardeners. We help things grow into what they were always meant to become. The missing families. What happened to them? They evolved, just like everyone else in Marshfield is evolving, just like you will evolve. I won't let you. Linda stood up, and as she did, her appearance began to change. Her skin became translucent, showing a network of pulsing lights beneath. Her eyes expanded, becoming deep black pools that reflected impossible depths. When she spoke, her voice had layers to it, harmonics that vibrated in my bones. Miguel Santos, age 34, forklift operator, divorced, no children, lives alone at 1247 Maple Street. You've been evaluated. Evaluated for what? Compatibility, integration potential, resistance levels. She stepped closer, and I could see myself reflected in those terrible eyes. You scored very highly. Get away from me. I pulled the trigger. The shotgun blast should have thrown her backward. Instead, Linda absorbed the impact like water absorbing a stone. The buckshot passed through her translucent skin and scattered harmlessly against the basement wall. She smiled with too many teeth. Violence is a symptom of primitive thinking, Miguel. You'll understand soon. The basement filled with that humming sound, growing louder and more complex. I could feel it in my chest, in my skull, vibrating through every cell in my body. The process is already beginning, Linda said. Can you feel it? The change? And God help me, I could. There was something moving under my skin. Not painful, exactly, but wrong, foreign, like insects crawling through my bloodstream. When I looked down at my hands, I could see faint lines of light beginning to trace along my veins. No, I whispered. Yes, you've been breathing our atmosphere for weeks now, drinking our water, eating food grown in our soil. The transformation is inevitable. The agricultural supplies at the warehouse, I realized with horror. They've been contaminating everything. How long? I asked. Since the first family was processed, we needed time to study you, to understand how your species functions. But now we know everything we need to know. The lights under my skin were getting brighter. I could feel my thoughts becoming clearer, more focused. The fear was fading, replaced by a strange sense of calm. That's it, Linda said. Stop fighting. Let it happen. But some small, stubborn part of me refused to surrender. I stumbled toward the stairs, trying to get away from her, from the humming, from the lights that were turning my body into something alien. I made it halfway up before I collapsed. The world spun around me, and for a moment I saw everything from a different perspective, through different eyes. I could see the network of lights that connected every changed person in Marshfield, could feel the vast intelligence that moved through them like blood through arteries. It's beautiful, part of me thought. Why was I afraid? But then I remembered Carlos's empty stare, Diane's mechanical movements, the thing that had worn my ex-wife's face. Because it's not me. It's not human. I forced myself to stand, to climb the remaining stairs. Behind me, I could hear Linda following, but she wasn't hurrying. She knew there was nowhere for me to go. I stumbled through my house, looking for... what? An escape route. A weapon that would actually work. A phone that would connect me to someone real. Through the front window, I could see them all still standing there. My neighbors, the police officers, dozens of people, all perfectly still, all watching, waiting. For what? The answer came with a fresh wave of alien clarity flooding my mind. They were waiting for me to finish changing, to join them, to become part of their collective. Our collective. The voice in my head corrected. You're one of us now, Miguel. I looked at my reflection in the hallway mirror and nearly screamed. My eyes were turning black. Not the iris, not the pupil, everything. And underneath my skin, that network of lights was spreading, pulsing in rhythm with my heartbeat, or what used to be my heartbeat. I ran to the kitchen, desperately searching for something, anything that might help. In the drawer by the sink, I found a bottle of aspirin. I dumped half of it into my mouth, chasing it with tap water, hoping to... what? Poison the things inside me. But as soon as the water hit my tongue, I realized my mistake. It tasted wrong, metallic, and I could feel the alien presence in my bloodstream responding to it, growing stronger. The water supply. They've contaminated everything. I spat it out, but it was too late. The change was accelerating now. I could feel my personality, my memories, my very sense of self being cataloged and filed away. Not destroyed, but reorganized, made more efficient. Linda appeared in the kitchen doorway. "How does it feel, Miguel?" I tried to say terrible or wrong or get away from me, but what came out was different. My voice had that same flat quality now, the same emotionless tone. "Good. The integration is nearly complete. Soon you'll understand why this is necessary." "Why?" I asked, and I wasn't sure if it was the old Miguel asking or the new one. "Your species is young, chaotic. You're destroying your planet, your civilization, yourselves. We're here to help you evolve past those limitations. By turning us into you. By making you better than you were. Look outside, Miguel. Really look." I walked to the window, moving with those same precise movements I'd noticed in everyone else. The crowd in my yard had grown. There were hundreds of people now, all standing in perfect formation. Men, women, children, all with those same dark eyes, all connected by invisible threads of shared consciousness. But now, instead of being terrified, I found myself impressed. The organization, the efficiency, the unity of purpose. No more loneliness, I thought. No more confusion or doubt, just clarity and connection. "Yes," Linda said, reading my thoughts as easily as if I'd spoken them aloud. "Do you see now?" Part of me did see, the part that was becoming something else, but there was still a fragment of the old Miguel buried deep in my changing mind, screaming in horror at what I was becoming. "Fight it," that fragment whispered. "Remember who you are." I tried to hold on to that voice, to the memories that made me human, playing baseball with Carlos as kids, my wedding day with Linda, the feel of the forklift controls under my hands, the taste of coffee at Murphy's Diner. But they were fading like dreams in the morning light. "Don't be sad," Linda said. "You're not losing yourself. You're finding your true self, the self that was always meant to be." She reached out and took my hand. Her skin was warm and familiar, but underneath I could feel something else, something vast and ancient and utterly alien. "Come outside, Miguel. Meet your new family." I wanted to resist. That last shred of humanity in me was screaming to pull away, to run, to fight. But my body wasn't obeying my commands anymore. My legs carried me toward the front door. My hand turned the knob. My feet stepped out onto the porch. The crowd turned toward me in perfect unison, and I saw myself reflected in hundreds of dark eyes. But I also saw something else. Acceptance. Welcome. Love of a sort. "We've been waiting for you," their thoughts whispered into my mind. "Welcome home." The humming grew louder, more complex, and I realized it was actually music, alien music that spoke directly to the transformed parts of my brain. It was beautiful, in a way that human ears could never appreciate. I walked down my front steps and into the crowd. They parted to make room for me, and I took my place among them. This is better, I thought. Why was I afraid? But even as I thought it, that tiny fragment of the old Miguel was still there, still fighting, still screaming. Because this isn't living. This is just another kind of death. The thought came and went, like a bubble rising to the surface of still water. And then it was gone, dissolved into the vast collective consciousness that now flowed through my transformed mind. I stood with the others, perfectly still, perfectly calm, and waited for the next phase of the plan to begin. Above us, More lights appeared in the sky. Ships carrying the gardeners to other towns, other cities. The evolution would continue, spreading outward like ripples in a pond, until every human on Earth had been improved. It's for the best, I thought with absolute certainty. They needed our help. But sometimes, in the quiet moments between collective thoughts, I can still hear that voice, screaming in the depths of my transformed mind. The voice of Miguel Santos, forklift operator, human being. And I wonder if the others can hear their old voices too. I wonder if Linda sometimes remembers what it felt like to love me with purely human emotions. I wonder if Carlos misses the sound of his own laughter. I wonder if, somewhere in the network of shared consciousness that connects us all, there's a part that knows what we've lost. But wondering is inefficient, counterproductive. The collective discourages such thoughts, so I push them down, deeper and deeper, until they're barely whispers, until they're barely there at all. I am Miguel Santos. I am also more than Miguel Santos. I am part of something greater. And if sometimes I dream of coffee and laughter and the weight of forklift controls under merely human hands, well, even gardeners need to sleep sometimes, don't they?